Thank you, Mr. Rajiv Golapudi, for sharing your thoughts with us. Moving on to the winner presentations, I would now like to invite Bharat Petroleum Corporation Limited onto the stage for the first winner presentation.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sanjay and I am from Bharat Petroleum, and my team is supporting me from there. And before I start, I would like to thank Rajiv for making the foundation for my presentation and helping me to move a little faster because of your understanding of what SAP's recommendation on the testing solution. And another thing I would like to mention here is we are on Solution Manager 7.1 and SP4. And we were quite happy about what we got in SP4 until Rajiv made the presentation in the first half when he mentioned about SP5. And now I think that maybe SP5 is a little better than SP4. So that is the thought that was playing in my mind. So what I'm going to share here is about our journey on implementing a testing solution, part of the SAP product portfolio that we have adopted. And that is what I'm going to share with you. So this is the agenda, and I will start with a little bit about explaining to you about what is BPCL all about, and just a summary of our company. So we are into three streams. You can see the first is the upstream, and which is the recent entry of Bharat Petroleum into upstream market, where we have entered in a big way, and we are also now into exploration of crude. And as you can see here, we have a subsidiary called BPRL, which is a 100% subsidiary of Bharat Petroleum. And we have now 26 exploration blocks, 9 in India and 17 abroad. And we have good finds in some countries like Brazil and Mozambique, where we have got good gas discovery. And we are now thinking about how can we bring that gas that we have discovered in those countries back to our country. And this is a big focus area for us going forward. So this is a new entry of BPCL into upstream market. Otherwise, traditionally, we have been a downstream refining and marketing company throughout. We also have refineries, and we have now 4 refineries. And the latest one, we have commissioned one refinery is in Madhya Pradesh at Bina. And all our refineries are on SAP platform. And this is the total capacity of the refining across the country. And we are a marketing company where we have presence across the country. And we distribute products like MS and diesel, petrol, diesel, kerosene. We also have LPG, aviation for the aircraft industry, as well as lubricants and for direct customers. Our total market share is about 23% as far as the distribution is concerned. And some more about operations. We have about 220 locations across the country. All of them are on SAP. And this is the tankage that we have, and about 12,000 retail points, which is the places where all of us go and put our petrol in our vehicles. And that is about 12,000. Then our financials, we are about $42 billion turnover company. And market cap is about $6 billion. We have about 14,000 employees in Bharat Petroleum. And out of which about 5,000 of them are the field staff, which is the front-facing people in our company. So that's about the BPCL. These are the business lines that we operate in. We have retail, basically where petrol and diesel is being sold from retail outlets. These are basically for big customers, direct customers, LPG, aviation, lubricants. And this is the new one that we have entered, which is the gas business, and we are now growing in this business, and the refining part. Okay, so this is the ERP Competency Center Ethos that we have built our competency center on. And we have a vision, and the vision is that we are a leading business process competency center in the world. So that is how we project ourselves, and that is how we create the vision for our whole group. We are a pool of experts generating value to the business using process innovation and new technologies. So we follow these vision that we create for ourselves. And the domain expertise that we have is like people from the businesses. We pick up the people from our businesses who have experience of working for more than, say, 8 or 10 years in a particular domain like finance or HR, and they become part of the ERP Competency Center. We do not hire freshers in the functional side. And we always believe that we are a trusted partner to the business, and we follow the a culture of making collaborative decision making, and it reflects in the kind of projects that we implement, and how we follow these is basically by involving the businesses into making a whole decision making process more collaborative, and only then implementing the change into the production environment. So something about our competency center. And our competency center is certified 5 times now as a CCOE, and it was shared by, I think, Ambrish in the morning session. So we are now 5 times certified, and I think every 2 years the certification process happens from SAP. So last 10 years we are a certified competency center, and our strength is about 100 plus SAP certified consultants, and the average experience is about 15 years in the functional domain. We also have authorized SAP training center, and we are partnering with SAP in field of education. So we provide authorized training to any customer across India, and we have the center is in Bombay, and we are also not in a big way, but we also do consulting, and our consulting domains are listed here. We provide expert consulting in functional areas in all the modules as well as in the technical module. We also provide training, the consulting in change management with respect to ERP implementation. We provide consulting also in doing quality audit for any client whoever wants to carry out this activity. SAP training we have been doing for a long time, and we also have consulting in the domain of BCP. And this is our SAP environment, and we are on EHP3, ECC6 EHP3, and we have IS Oil as the industry solution. We have 2 landscapes. One is HR, one is non-HR. We also have supply chain 7.0. We have BI 7.1 and enterprise portal 7.0. We have 2 landscapes. We have PI and we have GRC and solution manager 7.1 SP4. And this is where I'm going to talk about is SAP Tau. This is what we have taken from SAP as a part of the testing solution. SAP Tau 2.0, 6.4. We have over 50 SAP instances, including the IDA server, development, quality, and production systems. We have 2 major platforms, HP Unix, Oracle, and Linux. We have 8,000 users spread across 350 locations across the country. So that is our SAP user community. And all our SAP systems are placed at Mumbai, but our DR site is in Delhi. We also have non-SAP applications which are built on .NET application as well as on IBM WestSphere. Okay, so as a part of the testing solution, as Rajiv has been saying, that the foundation for the whole testing environment is the business process blueprinting, and this is what we started with. And so we took it up as a project to first define the whole business processes that BPCL currently operates. And I would say that was a big challenge for us, and this we did in the year end of 2010 and beginning of 2011. And we implemented SAP. We started the implementation of SAP in the year 1999. So the whole journey of about 10, 11 years, we did not think about creating something like this. And to be able to create a business process repository wherein we can capture the entire business process what Bharat Petroleum operates was a big challenge for us. But with the help of Rajiv, we had conducted a lot of workshops, and so we took it up as a project, and we said that let's first, as a team in ERPCC, sit together and understand as to what are the business processes across the entire company that we are currently operating. And keeping the SAP BPR functionality behind, because the business processes as we understand could be at a different level, whereas the level at which we need to capture the business process in SAP Solution Manager as a part of BPR is at a different level. So the biggest challenge was first to write down, to capture the business processes in a particular template across all the functional domains, be it HR, be it finance, be it supply chain management, be it any other areas in SAP. So the biggest challenge was for the teams to first sit down and to understand and to write down the entire business process in a particular template. And not only that, the biggest challenge again happened to be how do we capture that information in a meaningful manner as a part of SAP Solution Manager in BPR. BPR provides, say, 3 levels of capturing the business processes. And so that was the challenge, to understand the business process and to be able to then meaningfully put them in those 3 levels, so that anybody may not be in that particular domain. If he's looking at that particular information in BPR, he's able to make sense of, oh, this is the business process that in this particular area BPCL is operating on. So that is the project that we took up. And with the help of Rajiv Golapudi, we started that project. And basically, three things we had to keep in mind was that transparency in the way business processes are in BPCL. That was the perspective that we had to keep in mind. And then also, because we were looking at it as a foundation for a testing solution, how can this BPR that we create become the foundation for creating the whole test repository that we are going to create using SAP Tau and HPQC? And also the third thing was also in our mind as to whether we can then subsequently use this BPR into using for business process monitoring purpose. So these three things we basically kept in mind while creating the whole BPR in Solution Manager. So it was a big challenge for us, and all the teams, about 100 people worked together as a project. And so it was monitored centrally by the project management team, and a lot of workshops, a lot of understanding about the business processes in each area, and the business processes cutting across 2 domains. How do we capture those? Who's responsible? So all those challenges we had, and this is how we went about creating the BPR in Solution Manager. But the key enabler here is the focus from the top management to ensure that the business processes are captured completely and not missed out, and to be able to integrate all the functions together. Because all of you are from the ERP world, and you would know that when you are a part of the ERP team supporting the business or implementing various projects for your own organizations, how challenging it can be and how overwhelming it can be. You will be loaded with so many requirements from the businesses, and your focus, basically the team's focus, is to deliver value to the business. Now this is basically looking inwards, and the team is sitting together to create something for themselves. So that happened to be a bigger challenge for us, where the priorities for the teams to work on this project was itself becoming a big challenge. So anyway, so the top management focus, where we continue to monitor the project very closely and ensuring that each team is really working, and monitoring what output is coming out of each team was very crucial in completing this whole project. So that is the key enabler that I thought, let me just share it with you. At the end of it, what we got was, we never counted the business processes that BPCL is running. But at the end of this whole exercise, maybe accuracy maybe 90% or 95%, but nevertheless the figures then are in front of you as to what is exactly BPCL does in SAP environment. And this is the figure that I would just like to summarize here. And these are the 3 objects that SAP provides as far as BPR is concerned. So process steps is the one which is the individual transactions that are done, like creation of a sales order, display of a sales order, changing a sales order, or anything which SAP provides, all transactions put together. So as far as BPCL is concerned, we finally counted them, and we realized that we have about 3,100 transactions, individual transactions that are part of some of the business processes. So we captured them as a part of process steps in BPR. And combining those process steps, and you make them as a part of the business process, those turned out to be about approximately 700. So I would say a sales process in, say, gas business, or sales process in, say, retail business, sales process in LPG business, although they're all selling their own products, but the process, the sales order to billing cycle remains the same. But the process is different because it is for a different business. So all those business processes put together counted to be about 700. And the business scenarios, which is one level above the business processes, came out to be about 120. This is what was the ultimate result, end result of the BPR as far as BPCL is concerned. And this is just a screenshot of the whole BPR, the repository that we have created. And this is just the screenshot of the business scenarios, which I said about 120. And this is the way that we created the business scenarios. And then further to that, the breakdown of the business process and the process steps is what is seen in this next slide. And as you can see, the business processes are goods issue against the reservation in the cost center, for WBS, for reservation against order, cost center. All those are business processes, and within them, we have the process steps, which are the individual transactions. So this is the transparent, I would say, the business process in front of us in BPCL. And as Rajiv mentioned, that there are tools where you can see them graphically. And at present, we do not have any the business process blueprinting tool that he's saying, but maybe SPO5 will give us a graphical view of what we are seeing as a part of a table here. So this is how we have done the BPR project, and this became the foundation for going forward and developing the testing repository. And so we'll come back to this particular screen where, as Rajiv mentioned, that BPCA is a very important aspect of understanding the impact of the change that is coming into the production environment, where which are the business processes it is going to impact. So this becomes the basis of that change that is coming. So BPCA is a part of Solution Manager, and what happens in BPCA is that if we make any change, so change is like any requirement which has come from business to make a change in a particular area, and a development team sits down and does the change, and they create a particular transport request in a Solution Manager, and the transport request becomes the input for BPCA. And as soon as that BPCA is used, this is the BPR that is used, and it highlights the business processes, say 5 or 10, because of that particular change request as impacted. And that is the focus for testing using any tool that we use. So in our case, we're using SAP Tau. In somebody else's case, if the third option is chosen, maybe IBM Rational. But the BPCA and Solution Manager and BPR are closely linked like this. So you have a BPR, and then you do BPCA with the change request, and then you get to see how many processes are getting impacted because of that particular change. So this is the foundation for BPCA. And so it's very, very good that we have this BPR now, but the bigger challenge is, as we keep changing the business processes, who maintains this and how do we integrate this as a part of the regular change management processes? Because as the change goes into production without looking at this BPR, without looking at this repository is going to become stale in no time. So how do we ensure that this becomes a part of the change management process, that as and when the change is moving to the production environment, this BPR is also looked at, not ignored, and updated, and then the change moves into the production environment. So for that, we built a process, and the process is that we are using something called as a task in charm request, in change management request in Solution Manager. And the integration is that any change request that has come and any development that is currently going on to change a particular business process, the team lead who is responsible to make that change in the production environment, he is responsible for transporting this request, approving this request for production to enable that change in the production. What we have enabled here is a task which says that there is an impact on the BPR, and one needs to look at updating the BPR before the change is moved into the production environment. So we have integrated task with charm, wherein the team lead who is approving that change request also initiates the process of introducing this task, assigning this task to a particular team member, and passing on this information to the team member, saying that this request I will approve only when this task is completed by you. And the task is basically to go and update the BPR in Solution Manager. So the team member then goes to Solution Manager, updates the BPR, comes back to charm, whatever task is assigned to this particular team member, he confirms that I have completed that. Only then this request can technically be approved by the team lead for import into production. So we have built in some checks here, wherein if the task is created for updation of a BPR, and if the task is not completed, which means it is lying as a created or in process state, technically if somebody is trying to import that into production environment, the system would prevent it. So which means that consciously somebody will have to say that yes, I have tested that, I have updated the BPR, confirm the task in the change request, and only then the system permits the import of the change request into production environment. So this integration is what we have enabled as a part of updating the BPR as a part of regular change management process. So this is what is explained here, and the statuses are mentioned below in the lower part of the presentation, where there are 4 statuses where the team member and the team lead use these BPR statuses, and only when it is completed 100% is the system permitting the import of the change request into production environment. So this is very important, otherwise there is no way that you can ensure that whatever changes are going into production environment, your BPR is constantly getting updated. So we thought about this solution, which is completely our own creation, and the originators are also sitting there in my team there, and this is how we are managing to maintain the BPR in Solution Manager. So once we finished the whole BPR part, then we started the journey on creating a testing center of excellence, which is basically Project SAP TAO as we called it. And this is just the need assessment that we did for why do we need an automated testing solution at BPCL. And as is mentioned in the various points here, that so much of dynamics happening in the market, and every day there are so many new changes keep coming to ERP Competency Center, and that whole team is involved into making changes and enabling changes day in and day out. And we've seen that about 700 business processes are what BPCL actually runs. And there's a big risk that if at all any change, we move to production environment without proper testing, and somebody rightly said, what is regression testing when you were asking that question, that all the impacted business processes are what we need to test before we move the changes to production. So that was bothering our team as to we don't have any process, any tool where we can transparently see what is the impact of this change, and there is no process where we can really test it out and not putting too much effort, which means that we automate all those business processes as far as testing is concerned, and then being able to move changes into production environment. So that was the basic need for. Another very important need that we felt was that if we do not have any process or a tool, then what happens is that any change that a particular team is making, the knowledge about what needs to be tested and the whole data about how to test is residing with some individual team members, which is again not a desirable situation in a project, because you would like less dependency, and I read somewhere less dependency on the gurus, which means that only few people in your group know about the whole testing and what needs to be tested and what data needs to be used for testing. That also used to bother us, because many people resign from your organization and they join some other organization, and then the whole knowledge just goes away with them, and then you are struggling to find out ways and means of getting that information, and then you waste a lot of time in understanding what needs to be tested. So all those things were bothering us, and that is why we thought that let us have some process, some tool where there is no dependency on the individual team members, and the whole thing is transparently stored in some place where even if a person who is not from that process wants to test that process, he should be able to test that process without the intervention of the team that is making the process. And that is what we were trying to enable using a particular tool from SAP, and SAP TAO and HPQC has enabled us to do that, wherein the whole repository is centrally stored in a separate environment, and the whole data about what needs to be used for creating a particular transaction is also stored centrally there. So there is no dependency on one or two team members. And the impact that we are talking about, and when he said that some impact is the immediate impact which the developer knows, but there are impact areas which the developer does not know. And BPCA basically enables us to understand the impact which is not in my domain, but it may impact, say, finance. If I'm making a change in my domain in SD, it may impact in finance or it may impact in MM. That transparency BPCA provides, and that repository which is stored centrally in some place. And if I am not from MM or I'm not from finance, but I'm from SD and I'm making that change, I am also enabled to make use of those repositories which are stored in finance and in MM, and I'm enabled to test those before I consciously approve this request and I approve it for moving into production. So these kind of transparencies also we were able to achieve using these tools. And this is the whole automation framework that we have used, and it is from SAP. And as you can see, there are 5 steps mentioned there, and these are the 5 steps in our testing cycle that we adopt. So the first is the solution manager, and we've talked about creating the BPR in solution manager. That is the first foundation based on which the next steps in the testing solution then takes on. So the first step is to create a BPR, which is what I've just shared with you. The second step is basically using the solution manager to transfer the requirements into SAP Quality Center by HP, which means that there is an adapter, QC adapter that we use, wherein the BPR becomes the basis for creating your testing solution. So if BPR has got 3,000 process steps and 700 business processes, this is what we need to test. This is what we need to create as a part of test repository. So we transfer the whole BPR, the whole business blueprint into Quality Center using the adapter. And that becomes the basis for the whole design in Quality Center for the test solution that we are going to create. So that is what we have done. So we have transferred everything into solution, into QC, and exactly what has come as a requirement from Solution Manager was the basis for creating the test repository. So the second step was that. The third was to develop and update a test case, which means that the 3,000 process steps that I was talking about, those 3,000 transactions we had to automate. So I would say that about 90% of those, the transactions we have automated, which means that if there is a sales order to be created, sales order script is available as a part of Quality Center, which is an automated script, which means it can run independently by anybody. So that is what is the third step that we have chosen. And then the fourth step is basically to create the automated, so the fourth step is basically to join all of them together and create them as a part of the business process. So 3,000 transactions and 700 business processes using SAP TAO. So SAP TAO is the automation framework for automating all those processes, and then finally running them and passing the result back to Solution Manager. So the requirements came from Solution Manager into HPQC. HPQC is the base for designing and creating the test repository, and the end result of the testing goes back to the same Solution Manager from where it originated. So that's the completion of the whole testing cycle. So the requirements go to QC, QC tests everything, and the results flow back to the same node to Solution Manager. So the whole cycle, I think if I have a slide that I will explain to you later on how it goes in. So we are, this is the SAP TAO screenshot. We are on 2.0 and 6, patch number 6.4. This is the TAO that we have taken. And so this is how the whole process goes. And I will take some time to explain to you this. So BPR in Solution Manager is the basis for defining the test scope. So that is the test scope coming from the business process repository. Then individual process steps are automated using SAP TAO and then combined to make automated business processes. So this is the first part. The second part, second step, automate the transactions and then join them to make automated business processes. So 700 business processes is what BPCL runs. All are automated, which means that if I say that if I do BPCA and BPCA says there are 10 processes which are impacted, business processes which are impacted, I come to QC and I select those 10 business processes which are a combination of multiple transactions. And since the business process is automated, when I execute that in Quality Center, the whole process runs through automatically without any intervention of anybody. It picks up the data from the central repository, puts it into the transaction, and the whole process either fails or passes. So the whole report is also stored beautifully in Quality Center. So that is the whole process that is adopted for using this. Another important aspect is the BPCA. So how BPCA functions, and Rajiv was saying that BPCA tells us the impact, but how does the impact analysis is enabled by BPCA? It is basically using something called as TBOM, which is Technical Bill of Material, and this is the object which is basically picked processes based on the change, because the change will have some objects, and if those objects are common as a part of the Technical Bill of Material, those processes are picked up and said they are the impacted business processes. Now here I would like to share our experience and our implementation design that we have adopted. We decided that since we have 3,000 process steps, and it would be rather difficult for us to manage those transactions going forward, to be able to manage them and to be able to make them work every time. So we decided to shift our focus from process steps to business processes. And we decided consciously in the project as an implementation philosophy that we will not test the individual transactions at all. We will only test business processes, which means that any change, even if I do in sales order, and if sales order is a part of 10 business processes, I'm going to test the whole business process right from sales order to the end of the billing, not testing only the sales order part. This decision we have taken consciously so that we are doubly sure that the whole process is working fine. Not only that particular transaction is working fine because of that particular change. And that decision basically enabled us to generate the technical bill of material at the level of business process and not at the level of the individual transactions. That was a decision that we have taken consciously, and with the help of SAP we derived a way of generating the technical bill of material at the business process level. So we have T-bombs at 700 places in the BPR, not at 3,000 places in BPR. So if we do a change impact analysis, we will only come to know the impacted business process and not the individual transactions. That is our focus. So that is our design, that is our implementation philosophy that we have adopted. Okay, so the whole process I explained to you, the BPCA, and then the business processes, what are impacted are listed as a part of BPCA, and then we go to quality center, pick up those processes, test them, shift the result back to solution manager. If the result is okay, we shift the request into production. Otherwise, correct them, make them work properly, run them successfully, then move the change to production environment. That is what we have done. So as you can see, the progress is here. 90% of the process tests we have finished now. We have put a process to use them as a part of regular change management process, and I'm going to share what we have done. And about 70% of the business processes have been automated, which means 30% still work is going on because it is a large number. And T-bombs also parallelly have started, and 50% of 700, which means about 350 technical bill of material at the level of business processes we have generated, and that is where BPCA is being currently used. So again, the challenge of how do we integrate, and as Rajiv said, that it is only in SPO5 that they are integrating solution manager with QC. So in SPO4, the integration is not there. So we need to have a process of, again, integrating the change which is going into production with the repository that we have created. So we have two options we are thinking about. Option one is a passive control, which is the manual control which we have already implemented. And the second we are looking for future is an active control, which is the system-based control, and I'm going to share that as to what is in our mind, how to integrate in SPO4 the linkage of change request with TAO repository, and how do we integrate them. So both these options I'm going to share. Option one is very similar to what we have done with BPR, and we have got a task in the charm request where we say it is to be used for testing using SAP TAO. So task is created by the team lead, telling the team member, go to TAO, test it, confirm the task, and say that the testing result is okay. And then I approve the request to go into production environment. So this is the passive control that we have built in, and that the steps that the team member needs to follow is also documented. That if at all the test script is not working, he will need to repair the test script. If the T-bomb is outdated, he would need to generate the T-bomb again, then running it successfully, and then transferring the result back to solution manager successfully. Once that whole cycle is completed, he completes the task, and the team lead approves it for production import. So this is the manual control that we have already implemented, and people are using this option currently. But we also realize that this may not work 100% always, and there may be some instances where people may not use so judiciously. So how to bring the system-based control? So in future, what we are thinking is we will create something like this is just the task I've already explained. This is what is in our mind for bringing a system-based control as a part of charm request, which means that there are 1, 2, 3, 4 steps we have put in here, and this is the charm workflow that goes on. And as soon as it is imported into quality for testing, when the testing has to be done for the particular change that has happened, we will build a check in the change request that BPCA is enabled automatically, and which is what they have enabled in SPO5 automatically, which can be done from the charm request. We are planning either to upgrade to SPO5 because we have heard him now, and otherwise, if you're not able to go to SPO5, this is in our mind that we can build that control ourselves and enable the BPCA as a part of charm ourselves, and the BPCA impact will be, say, two business processes getting impacted because of the change that is coming in. Okay, so this is the automatic BPCA result which comes in here. This is the test scope in SAP TAO and HPQC. We test it, successfully tested, the result goes back to the BPR and solution manager, and then only this condition is checked here. The fourth condition checks here and allows the import of the charm request into production. So this is a system-based tight control. And to enable people to have a look at what is their current status of a particular change request, we are thinking about this report, wherein we say that if this is a change request and the status of the charm request is to be tested, what happened to that change request? So BPCA was done, the BPCA result was ID was 2, and it says there are 5 business processes which are impacted. This is the date on which the BPCA was carried out. So 5 business processes were tested in QC, there were 3 passed and 2 failed. So this is the current status of that particular change request. And if the request is in this status, we will build a check and a condition in the charm request where even if somebody says import to production, the system would reject it, unless this report says all green, all tested successfully from QC, Unless that happens, only then the change request is imported into production. So this is a more tight control, more system-based control, which is what we're planning for future. Once all our teams are completely in tune with using SAP TAO and QC as a test repository, becoming used to using that particular tool, because it's a big change for our team, because they're not used to testing using a particular tool. They're used to testing maybe 2 or 3 transactions using their desktop and their laptops, and confirming everything is okay, and you can import the request to production and nothing is going to go wrong. That kind of confidence. So this is a big change, because now you're putting a discipline in them. You're ensuring that they go into QC, test it, successfully make it run, pass the result back to solution manager, and only then the request can be approved technically in the system. So we are thinking it's as a big change for our team, and we will adopt it, but not maybe immediately, but after having gone through that manual process. After some time, definitely we're going to move to more system-based control. And some of the screenshots in Quality Center of our business processes that we have automated is exactly similar to what we see in the BPR. So the naming convention that we adopted is also both exactly match. So if a particular business process is named in a particular way as a part of BPR and Solution Manager, exactly the same name we can come and trace in Quality Center. So similar names are appearing here, and this is the test script that you can see here is for a business process, and you just need to execute this script, and this script may have about 10 transactions. So 10 process steps, one by one, it executes, and it says the business process has passed or the business process has failed. This is a part of QC. This is the consolidated business process. And this is the requirement and test coverage. I was saying that the whole business process repository getting transferred to Quality Center. This is the view from there. And this shows green means the requirement has been covered completely. If this is the business process, we have a script in Quality Center, which is exactly the same script. And that script, when it is executed, it has run successfully. So you get to see these kind of results. And then this result is sent back to Solution Manager as this business process has been tested successfully. So this is the whole testing, I would say, automation framework that we have adopted. And this is the view of the technical bill of material, and you can see there the same naming convention appears as here also. This is the BPR, which you can see on the left-hand side, and the same BPR, and you can see the T-bombs generated for all of them. And I have said that about 50% of the business process, about 300 odd business processes, T-bombs have been generated by us. And one T-bomb view is something like this, where you can see the number of objects that this particular T-bomb has collected. And I'm not able to read that, but there is a figure which is there, which says that so many technical objects are part of this particular business process. And if one of the object is impacted because of the change, this business process is listed as impacted in the BPCL result. This is how the whole process works, and this is the flow, the revised flow that we have now put in use at BPCL, is that there is a request for change that comes from the users. The request comes in to ERPCC, and what are the approved requests are taken for implementation in the respective team. So if it is a change in the sales order cycle, it lands into sales team, and the sales team then picks up that and starts the change to enable the change in production. We prepare an internal SRS document for our internal purposes, and then we create a change request for making the changes in the system. And once it is imported into quality, these two new interventions we have put in place in the name of task. So after import to quality, we introduce 2 tasks. One task is to update BPR, and this is a manual intervention, but consciously the team lead introduces this task so that task is updated before the change is moved into production. This will remain in our system for a long time, because we don't have any other way of managing the maintenance of BPR, updation of BPR as an ongoing process. So we are planning to keep that process for a long period of time. This is again another task that we've introduced for testing, and this is where I said that we may introduce a more system-based control. It may not remain as a task that we have currently introduced. And once these 2 steps are completed, the change request is imported into production environment. So these 2 new interventions we've introduced in the regular change management process. And again, here I would like to say that it is not that in every change request these 2 interventions are required. Because it may happen that we are moving a change to production, but it may not impact the change in the business process. The business process may not have changed. So in those cases, this task is not used at all in the charm request. So it is consciously being used only in cases where there is an impact in the BPR and the BPR needs to be updated. Otherwise, this task is not required. Similarly, testing. So if I am introducing a change like I am adding a purchasing group in MM module, or I am adding a plant in say MM module, small configuration changes which do not require rigorous testing to be performed. Those kind of changes, again, this intervention may not be required. So again, any change which is involving a development of or changing a modification of a particular program, then this intervention comes into play. Any customizing change, if it impacts the business processes, then this change comes into play. But simple customizing like adding a purchasing group does not call for testing using SAP TAO and going into all those big areas. So we may skip those steps in those cases. So what we've done is we have documented the whole process, and we have shared the document with the whole team, wherein the whole process has been explained to them as to which are the scenarios where it is mandatory to update the BPR, it is mandatory to update the, mandatory to use the testing solution. Which are the cases where you have an option, where you need not use those options, but you can straight away, conveniently and happily go into production without impacting any of these processes. So documented, shared in a common place, communicated to the entire team. So this part of the implementation we have completed now. And so summary, the last slide from my side, that we are on SPO 4 and more food for SPO 5 now from Rajiv. Then we have already implemented the process of updating the changes in the BPR, integrated with CHARM. As a part of next step, now this task is something that we have discovered in intervention can be implemented, and said that before you import this to production, go to Solution Manager, BPR, update this particular document. Consciously somebody will have to say, I have updated, and then move forward. Now it is another question, how far we need to police those people, whether they have really updated, they have not updated. So there's another big area that we don't want to go into, and we are not at all interested in that. We are saying that our team is more capable, okay, responsible. We introduce processes, we expect them to follow those processes. Okay, team leads are there to manage their business process. If they are confident of moving the process knowingly, without testing TAO, and assuming that nothing is going to go wrong, and if nothing goes wrong, probably nobody is going to question them. But someday something goes wrong, then probably all these processes, whether they've been followed, not followed, would be looked at, and more stringent rules may come in future. So to start with, this is how we are progressing. I think enough I have said enough. I've explained most of the points here, and I think this is the project team from our side who contributed to the project management part, and 3 of them are sitting here. And I would say that it's an overwhelming task to automate 3,000 process steps. And without each member, that was another big area for us to realize whether we need to create a separate team to run the testing center, which means the whole knowledge goes with those 3 or 4 set of people. How to automate using SAP TAO. Or another option is to enable each team themselves to nominate few people from their own teams, and then enable those people to create the whole repository. And the second option is what we have adopted, wherein we had to really struggle hard to train so many people. And there was a big churn. So any new member comes in, we had to keep them updated on the new development that have happened. But we continue to do that. We have teams, multiple modules. All the modules have got people who know about how to automate using SAP TAO and HPQC. So they are independent. Any new process comes in, they are independent. They don't ask the testing team to come and help them to create those repository. They create on their own. If any test case fails, they know what is to be done. If a testing team is to be created, obviously it would take a lot of time for them to understand HR, FI, MM, SD, all those processes. So it's a big challenge to even manage that separate set of team. So consciously we have adopted this process of enabling individual teams, giving them the requisite training, all the tools and whatever they need, support they require, and enabling them to manage the whole repository on their own. So that is how the whole repository got created, where each team identified the scenarios and each team was then monitoring how much has been completed, and as a part of project monitoring team, we were managing the entire project scope. But individual teams have made this whole thing possible. It would not have been possible by a few team members working and creating 3,000 process steps, automating 3,000 process steps, combining them to make 700 process steps. It was a very, very big task, and last more than about 1.5 years, we have been working on this project where we are trying to automate the entire business process in BPCL, and also the challenge of going forward, how to be able to maintain them and not, leaving the whole repository aside and forgetting about this repository and going forward and implementing changes in production. So that challenge anyway remains, and we need to consciously handle that particular challenge going forward. So this is the whole story from Bharat Petroleum on implementing the testing solution. And if you have any questions, you can ask me. That is all I have to say. Yes. Thank you. Yes.
First of all, thank you for sharing this. I think when I take it with my experience, I think a lot of similarity here. And the way you explain, I think is a lot of good information. Yeah? So thank you for that.
Thank you.
A lot of questions, but I'll restrict to two in interest of time, because after that it's my chance to present. So the first one is, in terms of BPR, I know it's one of the prerequisites before you really think about even automation. Like, how many people did you have in the team, and what was the business role in that?
What is the business role? Yeah. So we have not involved anybody from business, because we have people from business working in the teams. So they are the knowledge repository for us as far as that particular process is concerned. So say I take an example of, say, FI team. In, say, finance team, we have about 6 team members. One team member is expert in, say, CFM. One team member is expert in asset management. We enabled both the team members. Identified the CFM scenarios. The CFM person automated CFM scenarios. Asset management expert automated asset management scenarios. Similarly, funds management, controlling, and finance. One person knows 2 areas. That person took responsibility for 2 areas. He automated 2 scenarios, 2 processes he automated for 2 areas. And then the whole thing is monitored by the team lead sitting there and seeing how many scenarios are balanced. And if there is a lack of understanding between somebody, then the knowledge transfer within the team happened, and then they automated the scenario themselves. So nobody involved from the team. The teams themselves, depending on the team size, depending on the number of scenarios. And we had 1,000 scenarios from only MM team, because they had so many variations. And MM team had maybe about 4 people who automated about 1,000 process steps on their own completely.
The other question which I have is on the data strategy, because that's very key as far as automation testing is concerned. So how you guys are making sure that the data what you're using for testing is always, because data keeps changing, because business will keep introducing new and new variants or some sort of stuff. How are you making sure that every time you do a test with the right set of data?
So that's a very good question, and I would like to answer and will explain a little bit about our strategy of storing those documents first. So as I said, that the challenge of not having repository or not having knowledge only with few people, how to overcome that challenge, what we adopted was, we said nobody is going to store the automated scripts, and as you automate using SAP TAO, it generates an Excel file with the data. So data files are automatically getting generated. Now it is a choice with us to store that data file either individually in our laptops and desktops or in a central repository. So we consciously decided that nobody is going to store those information in their own desktop and laptop, but it is going to be stored at a central repository. And we created module-wise hierarchy there, and each one was assigning that particular path while they were automating. Because it was in their laptop, the path was defined as their module in that particular repository. The whole data files are going to go and store there. Okay, another big risk is suppose somebody deletes the whole folder from there, then what do you do? So we have a backup policy where every day we take a backup of the whole thing, and in case if something goes wrong, some data is deleted, then at least we can restore the previous day's repository, because it is becoming like a huge repository for us. We cannot really have that risk of not having that data at any point in time. Another challenge is when we upgrade, we refresh the data into quality system from production, because a lot of people demanded that the data is not exactly as it is in production environment. So basis team, the owner of TAO repository, owner of the solution manager, owner of the quality system, also updated the data from production to quality. And that is where the challenge started, where we realized that once we updated, some of the data was overwritten, and that data was there in the Excel file, but not there in the quality system. So what we have done now is that since we realized it as a part of our ongoing process, now we are trying to put a process where each team is making up a particular template and saying that for me, in my module, these are the masters what I'm going to use as far as Tau repository is concerned. Okay, then second part of it is the inventory management. So if I'm using a particular material in my script, and if the inventory is 0, then the script is going to fail. So creating those scripts also to update the master data, update those transaction data, so that all your repository is always running, forever running. Third thing is to put a process where every 15 days you run those scripts, irrespective of whether testing is there or not there. Somebody in the team is responsible for executing those scripts, checking whether they are running properly or not running properly, rectifying them, so that whenever the need arises, those scripts are always running. So these 3 things we need to handle. We are currently in the process of putting these processes in place.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'll sit down. Thank you very much.